Today's the 20th of April 2017. This is the cemetery in Berchtesgaden in Germany. It is unusual for the weather to be like this. In fact, it's highly rare. I cannot recall ever seeing snow and snow of this nature in April in my life, in this part of the world, sorry. I've seen it in Newcastle, but not here. The reason I'm in the cemetery because I've got this grave in front of me, Dietrich Eckart. Now, you mightn't have heard of him, but he was one of the four founders of the German Workers' Party, which came into existence in 1919. And he's got a pretty nice grave as well. Somebody regarded himself as certainly was a good Catholic, so much so he's got buried in here. If I were to drop down dead now, they wouldn't allow me to be buried in here. But Dieter, he seems to be all right. Now, the German Workers' Party, which of course became the Nazi Party. Now, he was born in a place called Neumarkt, which is not so far from Nuremberg. In fact, there's even actually, the Nazis built a memorial there to him, and which is still there today, but it's been defaced and vandalized and all the rest of it now. And so his mother died when he was only 10 years old. Now, she was somebody who spent most of her time in the church. In 1895, his father died, and he left him quite a lot of money, but he went and spent it all, as students tend to do. Now, he was a rather bohemian sort of a person. As a student, he took up alcohol and morphine, which wasn't very common then. He also liked to do a spot of dueling. I'm not terribly certain what the laws are on dueling, but I do know that he got himself arrested. He was arrested in Passau, and the mayor of Passau, and opening some memorial to him or some street or something in 1938, actually mentioned that he was actually there. He was a journalist. He wrote some really nasty right-wing anti-Semitic claptrap, in my opinion, but he also did a adaptation of Henrik Ibsen's Peer Gynt, and that went on the stage in Berlin in around 1912. And the result of that was that it actually got him quite well known and made him a lot of money. Now, the thing is though, in his version of it, he's taken Peer Gynt as being some Germanic superhero, and he is fighting against this underworld. Underworld and sort of the troll underworld, these characters from some fantasy land who just happen to be Jewish. Now, during the First World War, he, being a strong German nationalist, of course, he just sat at home and didn't get involved in the fighting. Well, he was then, by that time, in his 40s, so he probably didn't quite fancy it. Apart from that, I mean, alcohol and drug abuse were taking its toll. However, in sometime around, I'm not saying it was 1915 or 1916, he started this publishing house, which later became the same thing, did the Vulture Beobachter and a lot of other Nazi material. In 1913 he got married to Rose Marx, who was quite wealthy. She was from Bad Blankenburg, so she put money into it, and he actually made a fair killing himself on the well, killing's probably not the right word. It was as from his Peer Gynt productions in Berlin, and that actually brought him into the world of the wealthy, which later he was able to introduce Hitler to. The big things in his life really started happening with the German collapse in the First World War. Sometime in the spring or early summer of 1919, he wrote an essay believing that some type of German Messiah was about to come their way. A bit like in the Directors in the film by Mel Brooks. He clearly supported the stab in the back myth, the idea that it was all the Jews who were responsible for it, and this led him to form this German Workers' Party in 1919, so which he did with four other people, Feder, Anton Drexler and Karl Harrach. Hitler turned up to spy on them. He was sent there by the army in 1919, and this, I think, is the moment where Eckart and Hitler met. Eckart then becomes some fascination with this man who's more than 20 years younger, and now Eckart had been involved with the Thule Society, although he wasn't a member of it himself, But this was a sort of a group of occultists, and they also believed in this German Messiah type thing. And now, in his essay that he wrote in 19, he sort of referred to him as the one who will come, or the sort of the great one, or the one who shall remain nameless until the time comes to name him, something along these lines. And then, anyway, Eckart introduced Hitler to Alfred Rosenberg, later hanged, and so the three of them really did quite a lot for the Nazi Party. Indeed, when Hitler and Eckart, they went up to Berlin in June 1921. Now, Eckart had lots of contacts there, wealthy people he'd known from his time doing his Peer Gynt and what have you, and he thought he'd get some money off them, because the people who sort of believed in this Völkischer nonsense as well. Now, in the meantime, in Munich, where the Nazi Party was based, the committee there decided they're going to link with the German Socialist Party. Anyway, Hitler gets the hear about this. He returns to Munich on the 11th of July 1921 and resigns. He's not having any of it. He's not doing any deals with any socialists. Anyway, the committee realised that Hitler, he was the only star that they had, the only one to bring them any money in, the only one that was likely to do any good for them. So they get Eckart to persuade Hitler to go back to the party. 2 weeks later, Hitler goes back into the Nazi Party, but as chairman. So he's now the boss, but he's the only one to do any speaking anyway. Eckart and Hitler were very close. Something that Eckart wrote, which I tried actually to read, but it was pretty nonsensical, but I found it on the internet, was conversations with Hitler. It would seem that maybe that he didn't actually write these conversations with Hitler, he just made them up himself. But anyway, it's the sort of thing that Hitler would say. And this clearly, it said that when Hitler spoke of Eckart late in life, his eyes would become watery, and he would think of him, sort of a father figure to him. Eckart took part in the putsch of the 9th of November, and he was arrested immediately after it, trying to overthrow the legal German government. And having said that, he was very ill, and he died of a heart attack on the 26th of December 1923, only 6 weeks after the attempted putsch. 55 years old. Cause is clearly related to drugs, alcohol, and the sort of lifestyle he was leading. In the Nazi era, he was remembered. He's the mentor of Hitler, the person who put him on this anti-Semitic path, this idea of this sort of, in a way, socialist economics, the state control of everything, sort of economics, but it's all basically laid down as the Jews are responsible. So we've got to take stuff away from the Jews. The Nazi Party did go off on left some of its more extreme left-wing ideals behind it in the 30s, and went, although having said that, the Nazi state was really very similar to a socialist state with large amounts of organizations, each competing with each other. Many streets were named after him. He had monuments in many towns. Of course, they were all taken away in 1945 and renamed. I am really surprised to see this grave like this, remembered in this way, and also next to the main gate. And just to show you what else, this is like the main square in Berchtesgaden. And another thing is the amount, or as we walk around here, we can see the people who were killed in the war. They are died in the East, 14th of January 1944, 20th of September 1941, aged 52. There, Chalon-sur-Marne, and that is Gefallen 1940, I think it is. Yes? Well, Chalon-sur-Marne, that would be logical. There's another victim of the war. We've got victims of the war here. We've got victims of the war all over this graveyard. Yet one of the precursors of the war. Now, Eckart, he didn't kill anybody. It didn't even serve in the military. But he's there. Now, there's another person around here somewhere, is Hans Lammers, who was a very important Nazi official. His grave is somewhere around here, although I haven't found it yet, but I'm going to look for it, and once I find it, I shall report back on it, and I shall talk about Hans Lammers. One of the things that Dietrich Eckart wrote, and I saw it actually today in the documentation centre, which is here in Berchtesgaden, the Obersalzberg, near the Berghof, where Hitler used to live, was something which he called In guter Deutsch, which I would say plain speaking. It was a pamphlet. It was published from around 1916 to, I presume, 20, maybe even 23, I don't know. But plain speaking, it's blaming the Jews for everything. Everything's the fault of the Jews. No matter what it is, it's the fault of the Jews. And that was something, and you can see actually, if you go to the documentation centre, you can actually see there's one or two little panels there about Eckart and the effect that he had on Hitler. It's a strange thing that this is one of the people who really defined the 20th century. He's in this graveyard and in this state, and to say I'm a little bit shocked, I think that might be even coming through my tone of voice from, I'm shocked at the state of the graves. I wasn't expecting it to look like that. Okay, so I'll write some more in the description, possibly, I may not, and I'm now going to look for Lammers.